Tonight, as you settle in, let the world around you soften. Adjust your blanket just so, that perfect weight that feels like a quiet hug. Maybe pour yourself a warm cup of tea, the kind that carries whispers of distant lands and forgotten gardens. Lean back gently into your pillow, close your eyes for a moment, and take a slow, deep breath, like you're drawing in the calm before a whispered secret. In this stillness, imagine a faint glow flickering at the edges of your vision, like a candle struggling against a gentle breeze. It's not quite light, not quite dark, an invitation to step beyond the ordinary. Tonight's tale begins there, in that delicate space where the familiar blurs into something intriguingly strange. The title you've heard sets the stage like a faint echo of a dream you almost remember. It's a hint of something peculiar, a shadow cast by a figure just out of reach. Perhaps it's a silhouette in a misty alley, or the soft clink of keys on a ring that doesn't quite jingle as you expect. Whatever it is, it's the first thread in a tapestry woven from curiosity and quiet wonder. You might picture yourself slipping through a door left ajar, where the air carries a scent you can't quite place. Earthy, with a trace of something sharp, like the tang of old paper or the distant whistle of a train long gone. This is no ordinary journey, and yet it feels as comforting as a favorite book's worn pages or the melody of a lullaby hummed softly on a rainy evening. As your mind drifts, imagine the oddities of this journey as if they were the quirks of a city street at twilight. Not the predictable honking of horns or the glare of neon signs, but the subtle shuffling of feet on cobblestones, the muffled laughter behind closed shutters, and the occasional, almost imperceptible pause in the rhythm of life, like a forgotten melody caught in a breeze. Think of the inconveniences you know well, waiting for a delayed letter, the slow crawl of a line at the post office, or the tangled mess of earbuds in your pocket. Now transpose these frustrations into another time, where instead of screens freezing or buses running late, it's the slow turning of gears in an ancient clockwork world, or the hesitant flicker of gas lamps struggling against a gathering fog. There's a certain irony in how progress and patience dance across centuries, isn't there? Tonight, as you listen, you'll find that the past isn't so distant. Its strange customs and curious rituals have their own rhythm, as familiar and oddly comforting as the hum of a distant train or the crackle of an old radio tuning in. Feel the night deepen around you like a velvet curtain drawn gently closed. Shadows lengthen and mingle, as if the very air were alive with soft murmurs and distant footsteps. It's a quiet symphony of sounds, like the rustle of leaves stirred by a midnight breeze or the faint tap of rain against a window pane. Soon you'll find yourself standing at the threshold of this other world where time moves differently, not faster, not slower, but with a peculiar cadence all its own. The mist curls around your ankles, cool and inviting, while unseen voices seem to beckon you forward with a knowing smile. And as your eyelids grow heavier, ready to close completely, you'll feel the gentle pull of that world drawing you in. Not the world you know with its endless notifications and instant messages, but a place where the air is thick with stories waiting to be told, stories that dance just beyond the edge of sleep. So rest now, let the quiet wrap around you like a soft shawl. In a moment you won't wake in your familiar bed, but somewhere else entirely, somewhere where the past and present intertwine like threads in a dream, and where your role will be as unexpected as the flicker of a candle in a darkened room. Prepare yourself, for this journey will be strange, curious, and oddly soothing. A nighttime voyage through shadows and whispers, where every breath carries the promise of discovery. And as you drift off, remember, the story is just beginning, and the world you're about to enter holds secrets as old as time itself. Instead of soft sheets and the gentle hum of an electric heater, you find yourself lying on a rough, straw-stuffed mattress, the kind that seems to poke at your skin through the thin, scratchy blanket covering you. The air is thick and heavy, not with the sterile scent of modern air conditioning, but with a medley of odors that assault your senses all at once. The sour tang of vinegar mingles with the acrid smoke curling from a nearby hearth, sharp hints of burnt herbs, and the unmistakable musk of unwashed bodies pressed too close in cramped quarters. You push yourself up, wincing as the uneven wooden floor beneath your bare feet sends a chill racing up your spine. The planks are cracked and warped, their surfaces rough and splintered in places, as if they've weathered 1,000 footsteps and countless seasons. Nearby, a faded cloak lies discarded, its fabric stiff with grime and smelling faintly of damp earth. You reach out and touch it, the coarse wool rasping against your fingers like an old friend with a harsh handshake. Around you, dim shafts of early morning light filter through narrow, shuttered windows, casting long, crooked shadows across the room's low stone walls. The architecture is unfamiliar, a patchwork of timber beams and rough plaster, crumbling here and there but still standing defiantly against the chill. On a rickety wooden table, a few curious objects lie scattered. A glass vial with a cloudy liquid, a bundle of dried herbs tied with twine, and something odd, a mask with a long curved beak, darkened with age and stains. The sight of it sends a shiver down your spine, an eerie reminder of the strange role you seem to have assumed here. The sounds around you are no less haunting. From somewhere down the narrow corridor, the faint tolling of a bell echoes, a slow, mournful chime that seems to mark the passing of time in a way you've never experienced. Occasional groans rise from other rooms, perhaps the sick or the weary, and the shuffle of footsteps on stone and wood suggests a restless house that never quite sleeps. Outside you catch the distant bark of a dog, the clatter of a blacksmith's hammer on an anvil, and the murmur of voices, some sharp with urgency, others soft with despair. Your nose wrinkles as a wave of odor hits you again, sweat mixed with the sharp bite of burning herbs, a faint undertone of rotting meat that makes your stomach twist in protest. It's a far cry from the sterile, climate-controlled air you're used to. No scent of fresh coffee or scented candles here, just the raw, unfiltered essence of a world far removed from your own. As you stand, your bare feet meet the uneven floor with a coldness that bites through the thin soles of your shoes. Your skin prickles with the chill that seems to seep into the very bones of this place. You notice the fabric of your clothing, rough, heavy, and ill-fitting compared to the soft cotton or stretch fabrics you favor. The coarse linen scratches your skin where it rubs, and the stiff leather belt around your waist feels unfamiliar and unforgiving. You try to steady yourself, blinking against the dim light, your mind grappling with the strangeness of it all. Your idea of a bad morning back home might have been a missed alarm or a spilled cup of coffee, but here, it's realizing that the mask you're supposed to wear smells worse than the patients you're meant to help. The irony isn't lost on you, and a wry smile tugs at the corner of your mouth despite the discomfort. Your first task is clear. You reach for the mask resting on the table. The leather straps feel stiff and brittle as you fasten it to your face, the beak protruding awkwardly, filtering the smoky air in a way that's both reassuring and unsettling. The weight of it shifts your perspective, literally and figuratively, as the world narrows to the muffled sounds and filtered scents that come through the mask's strange design. Stepping outside, you are greeted by the muted chaos of a small town just stirring to life. The narrow streets are lined with timber-framed houses, their upper stories leaning slightly over the cobbled lanes below. Smoke rises from chimneys in thin, twisting streams, merging with the early morning fog that clings stubbornly to the ground. Here and there, faded banners flap lazily in the cold breeze, bearing symbols you can't quite place. People move about in a careful rhythm, some hurried, others resigned. A group of children chase one another with laughter that feels almost out of place amid the somber atmosphere. Nearby, a merchant arranges his wares on a rickety stall, bundles of dried herbs, glass bottles filled with strange liquids, and bits of cloth dyed in muted hues. His eyes flick toward you with a mixture of curiosity and a hint of wariness, as if your mask marks you as both protector and stranger. Down the street, a pair of soldiers clad in worn armor patrols with an air of tired vigilance. Their boots clomp heavily on the stones, and their gazes sweep the crowd with a practiced suspicion. A priest passes quietly, clutching a rosary and murmuring prayers that seem to blend with the ambient murmurs of the townsfolk. The sick and the weary shuffle past, some supported by others, their faces pale and etched with suffering. You notice how the mask you wear draws looks, some respectful, others fearful. It's a symbol, a barrier, and perhaps a beacon all at once. You realize that your presence here carries weight beyond the physical. It shapes how others navigate their day, how they hope, fear, and endure. As you take it all in, the strange textures, the scents, the sounds, and the people, a thought lingers at the edge of your mind. This world, so vivid, so tactile, is not one you belong to, not yet. To truly understand where you have just woken up, to grasp the meaning behind the mask, the herbs, the tired faces, and the whispered prayers, you must step back and see the larger picture. The currents that shape this life, the forces that carved out this moment in time, await your discovery. And so, with the mask firmly in place and the chill of dawn on your skin, you prepare to dive deeper into this strange, curious world. But before the story unfolds, before the past reveals its secrets, you take a breath, steady yourself, and look around once more. Because what lies ahead is more than just a tale. It's a journey into the heart of a time that shaped our fears, our hopes, and the thin line between life and shadow. It is the mid-14th century, a period when kingdoms rise and fall beneath the heavy cloak of disease, and rulers wield power as much through superstition as through sword and decree. The reign you awaken to is one where the familiar comforts of modern life have yet to be imagined. No instant messages, no warm showers, no reliable sources of clean water. Instead, your days begin with the tolling of church bells and the cautious whispers of neighbors hoping to avoid the unseen enemy lurking in the air. Society here is a complex tapestry woven from threads of power, faith, and survival. At the top sit nobles, those fortunate few who own vast estates and command armies, their gilded halls both a refuge and a prison from the chaos beyond their walls. Below them, the clergy hold sway, not merely as spiritual guides, but as arbiters of knowledge and medicine, their prayers and rituals often mingling with remedies both wise and strange. The bustling merchants weave through crowded market squares, hawking wares with voices as loud and persistent as a city's traffic jam, only with more livestock and fewer honking horns. And at the base of this pyramid are the peasants, the backbone of the realm, toiling from dawn until dusk in fields muddied by rain and neglect, their fortunes tied to the caprices of weather, harvests, and luck. The differences between rich and poor could not be starker. While the nobility enjoys heavy meals and warm fires, the common folk often endure hunger and cold, their clothes threadbare and their homes humble. Power flows unevenly here, a river that nourishes some while leaving others parched. The luckiest might escape illness or violence, but for most, survival is a daily gamble played against the fickle hand of fate. It's a world where the strong dictate laws, the pious seek protection through faith, and the vulnerable cling to hope like a fragile flame in a storm. Physically, the environment you now inhabit is far removed from the sanitized streets and climate-controlled buildings of your own time. Cities are dense labyrinths of narrow, winding alleys, their stones slick with mud and refuse. Marketplaces buzz with a cacophony rivaling any Black Friday frenzy, only with the added charm of roaming pigs and the occasional clatter of a cart tipping over on uneven roads. The smells alone tell stories, pungent mixtures of fresh bread mingling uneasily with the stench of waste and decay. Towering churches cast long shadows over modest homes, their bells marking the passage of time in a world where clocks are rare luxuries. Roads beyond the city walls are often little more than muddy tracks, treacherous after rain and frequented by travelers wary of bandits and worse. The rhythm of life follows a cadence dictated by nature and necessity. You rise with the crowing of roosters or the pealing of bells, not the shrill alarm of a smartphone. Your day is punctuated by repetitive tasks, fetching water from wells, tending to animals, working the fields, or if you are among the urban dwellers, navigating the crowded streets to ply your trade. Religious festivals and holy days provide rare moments of respite and celebration, their rituals as much about community as about faith. Hygiene, as you might soon discover, is an entirely different affair. Baths are infrequent and often viewed with suspicion, almost as if indulging in cleanliness were a secret act of rebellion or a herald of ill tidings. Imagine the modern spa day replaced by a cautious splash of cold water and a hope that the lingering grime might somehow keep sickness at bay. Contrasting this with your present-day experiences brings a smile tinged with irony. Your frustrations with spotty Wi-Fi or slow-loading videos pale beside the challenge of lighting damp wood to warm a bleak room. Forget about hitting the gym. Hauling buckets of water and chopping firewood provide a medieval version of CrossFit, albeit with fewer protein shakes and more blisters. And while you might grumble about traffic jams, here the slow-moving carts and herds of animals create a different kind of congestion, one where patience is as essential as a sturdy pair of boots. Politically, you have awakened in a world governed by monarchs whose power is both absolute and precarious. Kingdoms are often fractured, with borders shifting through war, marriage, and intrigue. The ever-present threat of invasion or rebellion keeps rulers vigilant, their courts a stage for both grandeur and cunning. Meanwhile, the Church wields influence that transcends earthly authority, its doctrines shaping laws and daily customs alike. Superstitions flourish in the shadows of ignorance and fear. Illnesses are attributed to curses, sins, or the malevolent workings of unseen forces. This blend of faith and folklore permeates every aspect of life, from the healing potions brewed in smoky kitchens to the charms hung above doorways. Among the curious beliefs of this era, some stand out for their quaint charm. People carry onions in their pockets, convinced these humble bulbs can ward off the plague, a form of organic insurance that, while ineffective, offers a small comfort in uncertain times. Others swear by inhaling the scent of flowers soaked in vinegar, a makeshift shield against the invisible miasma thought to spread disease. Masks with elongated beaks, strange and unsettling to modern eyes, are worn not only as protection, but also as symbols of a world grappling with its own mysteries. It's a time when science and superstition dance in uneasy tandem, and when the line between medicine and magic is delightfully blurred. Now that you know where you've landed, the grand tapestry of kings, clergy, merchants, and common folk begins to take shape. But to truly understand the life you're stepping into, the smells, the sounds, the odd customs, you must narrow your focus. Enough about battles, plagues, and politics. It's time to look closer, to see how these vast forces touch the intimate details of daily existence. Soon you'll find yourself exploring the rhythms of household life, the rituals of cleanliness, and the small but telling habits that define this strange, fascinating world from the inside out. Your body stretches stiffly, muscles still reluctant to leave the fragile comfort of sleep. You swing your legs over the edge of a simple bed, a bundle of straw and coarse cloth, and rise to greet the morning. The air is cool, carrying the faint scent of smoke from last night's fire lingering in the hearth. You shuffle toward the basin, a shallow wooden bowl resting on a worn table, its surface chipped but steadfast. Dipping your hands into the cold water, you feel the shock of its chill as it seeps through your skin. There is no warm shower to ease you awake, no gentle splash of modern plumbing, only this humble bowl and the hope that the brisk water will wash away the heaviness of sleep. You lift a handful and bring it to your face, the rough texture of the wooden basin contrasting with the softness of your skin. No soap bubbles greet you here, no fragrant lather to cleanse and soothe. Instead, the water feels plain, almost stubbornly unyielding, and your towel, a coarse square of linen, scrapes gently but firmly as you dry your face. Your morning routine, if it can be called that, is a far cry from the multi-step rituals you might know from your own time. Forget your carefully curated skincare products and scented cleansers. Here, survival is simply splashing some water and hoping your natural scent doesn't send neighbors reaching for their bundles of herbs. Bathing is a different story altogether, viewed with suspicion or reserved for rare occasions. Water is precious, firewood scarcer still, and the idea of immersing yourself fully in a tub can raise eyebrows, as if announcing secret plans or mischief. Instead, people rely on fragrances and herbs, hanging bundles of dried lavender, rosemary, or rue near doorways and windows to purify the air. Jars of vinegar sit on shelves, their sharp tang believed to ward off invisible illnesses. You might find yourself rubbing your hands with cloth soaked in these pungent mixtures, a medieval version of hand sanitizer, only with more sting and less scientific certainty. Stepping back from the basin, you take in the room around you. The house is modest, a small wooden cabin or stone-walled cottage with dark, soot-stained walls that tell stories of countless fires stoked to chase away the chill. Thick beams overhead groan softly with the weight of the roof, while the hearth crackles, sending up tendrils of smoke that mingle with the earthy scent of damp wood and worn leather. A few simple pieces of furniture stand sentinel, a rickety table, scarred by generations of knives and spilled ale, a bench that creaks under your weight, and a chest that holds the meager possessions of your household. The floorboards, rough and uneven, creak softly as you move, and the heavy tapestry hanging near the door sways gently in a draught. Your clothes await, rough-spun tunics and woolen hose, garments heavier and less forgiving than anything you might wear today. The fabric scratches at your skin like hugging a hedgehog would feel, and the weight of the layers makes every movement a little more deliberate. There is no elastic to ease your gait, no breathable cotton to soothe your sweat. Instead, you brace yourself for the day wrapped in textures that challenge your comfort, and your body responds with an itch here, a shiver there. Shoes are sturdy but stiff, made of thick leather that molds to your feet over time, but never quite loses its initial hardness. Compared to your modern soft sneakers or sandals, these feel like wearing tiny, unyielding shields on your soles. Hunger soon reminds you of the day ahead. You sit down to a simple breakfast, a slice of hard bread, dense and slightly stale, paired with a piece of aged cheese whose sharpness lingers on your tongue. Alongside, a thin broth simmers faintly in a wooden bowl, its flavor muted but warm, comfort in liquid form. The richness of modern coffee or the convenience of a breakfast bar is replaced here by sustenance that fills but rarely delights. Still, there is a quiet satisfaction in this humble meal, a grounding ritual to start your day. Hygiene and health are inseparable from belief and ritual in this time. You might clasp a small amulet, perhaps a carved bone or a pouch of herbs, around your neck, a talisman against disease and misfortune. Before stepping outside, a whispered prayer or a sign of the cross crosses your lips, a small act meant to secure divine protection. The air might carry faint scents of burning incense or herbs, their smoke believed to cleanse not only the body, but also the spirit. If you happen to be someone like a plague doctor, your morning ritual involves donning a peculiar costume, a heavy leather cloak, gloves, and a mask with a long beak filled with aromatic herbs meant to filter out the deadly miasma. The process is both practical and symbolic, a preparation for a world where fear and hope walk hand in hand. You cannot help but feel a strange mix of emotions, discomfort at the roughness of your surroundings, curiosity at the strange customs, and a gentle acceptance of this new reality. It's a kind of meditation, a rhythm that soothes despite its oddities, a reminder that every era has its own way of nurturing the body and soul. Now that you've survived the morning rituals, it's time to step outside and see how the rest of the world expects you to play your role. Enough about soap and sour bread, let's see what happens when you face the day's real work. The fog blurs the edges of the world, softening the outlines of figures moving purposefully through the narrow lanes. Wrapped in your heavy cloak, the weight of your tools and belongings settles against your side, a worn leather satchel filled with bundles of herbs and powders, a sturdy cane with a curved handle, and, of course, the distinctive mask perched over your face, its long beak stuffed with aromatic herbs meant to guard against the unseen pestilence. Your role here is unmistakable, and the eyes of the townsfolk follow you as you make your way through the streets. Children pause in their play, their expressions a mixture of fascination and unease, whispering behind cupped hands. Is that the plague doctor? They wonder, half curious, half terrified. Adults avert their gaze or offer a respectful nod, some with gratitude, others with suspicion. You carry the burden of both hope and fear, expected to heal, to comfort, or, at the very least, to appear useful amid the chaos. The weight of the community's expectations presses on your shoulders almost as heavily as your cumbersome attire. The marketplace bustles with life despite the shadow of disease. Vendors shout hoarsely to hawk their goods, bundles of dried herbs, fresh vegetables, coarse cloth, and salted meats. The clatter of wooden carts over stone, the low murmur of bargaining voices, and the occasional bark of a dog create a cacophony that fills the narrow square. Soldiers clad in chainmail stand watchful near the town gate, their breath visible in the chilly air, while peasants load sacks of grain onto wagons, their faces streaked with dirt and fatigue. Monks in simple habits move quietly among the crowd, their heads bowed in prayer or tending to the sick with gentle hands. You weave through this tapestry of life, your presence a striking contrast, part healer, part harbinger, your mask both a shield and a symbol. Your daily tasks are as relentless as the plague itself. You visit the homes of the afflicted, stepping cautiously over threshold stones slick with mud and refuse. Inside, the air is thick with the acrid scent of burning herbs and unwashed bodies. You feel the rough texture of wooden door frames beneath your gloved hands as you knock, announcing your arrival. Faces peer through cracked windows, pale, sunken-eyed, desperate. You examine the sick with practiced care, noting the telltale buboes and fevered skin. Your fingers prod gently, your breath steady behind the mask, as you prescribe poultices made from crushed roots and leaves, instructing caretakers on how to tend wounds or boil water for cleansing. Sometimes, when the illness has claimed its victim, you oversee the burning of contaminated clothing and bedding, the smoke rising in mournful tendrils that blend with the morning fog. Each encounter is marked by a swirl of sensations, the sting of vinegar applied to sores, the bitter taste of medicinal herbs pressed between your teeth to stave off nausea, the oppressive weight of sorrow in cramped, dimly lit rooms. The sound of coughing echoes relentlessly, a grim soundtrack to your endeavors. It's a far cry from modern frustrations. Forget your emails piling up. Here, the backlog is a line of coughing patients waiting outside your door, each one a world of pain and hope. Your office politics might be annoying, but at least they don't involve actual swords, though suspicion can be just as sharp as any blade. Interactions vary as you move through the social strata of the town. Nobles regard you with a mix of deference and discomfort, their finely embroidered garments rustling as they retreat behind heavy curtains. Servants and commoners exchange wary glances, some grateful for your help, others fearful that your presence foretells doom. Soldiers nod curtly, appreciating your role in protecting the community, while children dart away quickly, caught between fascination and dread. Religious figures offer prayers or blessings, their voices low and solemn, reinforcing the sacred nature of your work. A quick exchange of words here, a knowing glance there, these small moments stitch together the complex web of relationships that define your place in this world. History adds curious layers to your daily routine. Some among your predecessors believed that carrying a cane wasn't merely for support, but a means to poke patients from a safe distance, a tool of both caution and authority. Others thought that lighting tobacco inside the beak of the plague mask served as a kind of medieval aromatherapy, its smoke purifying the air you breathed. These rituals, part practical, part superstition, reveal the blend of fear and hope that colors every action. You too participate in these customs, aware that sometimes the mind's comfort is as vital as any remedy. Beyond your immediate duties, the town pulses with its own rhythm. Market fairs where traders from distant lands offer rare spices and fabrics, religious processions winding through the streets with chants and incense, soldiers drilling in the square with clashing swords and shouted commands, and farmers gathering harvests from fields beyond the walls. You are woven into this vibrant tapestry, your role both visible and vital amid the ebb and flow of daily life. But behind every busy market stall and every wary glance, there's a deeper fear that shapes this world, a fear that clings to the air like the morning mist, shaping behavior and belief in equal measure. To understand why people look at you that way, we need to step into their beliefs and superstitions. You feel it the moment you step into the village, an almost tangible weight pressing down like the thick fog that never quite lifts. Fear hangs in the air as palpably as the smoke from countless chimneys curling and drifting through narrow streets and over wooden rooftops. It lingers in the furtive glances of passers-by, in the quick clutching of rosaries hidden beneath threadbare cloaks, in whispered prayers slipping through cracked lips as you walk past. The fear is a living presence, as persistent as the cold stone beneath your feet and as relentless as the tolling of funeral bells that echo across the town square, marking the passage of another soul claimed by the plague. Churches stand packed to bursting, their dark interiors swollen with flickering candlelight and the thick, sweet scent of burning incense that clings to your skin and hair. The murmured chants of monks create a haunting soundtrack, their voices weaving through the heavy air, a constant plea for mercy and protection. You can almost feel the cold touch of the stone walls, smooth yet unyielding, as if they too bear witness to the ceaseless struggle between life and death. In this world, faith is not a mere comfort, it is a lifeline. Before each task, hands rise in the sign of the cross, lips move in silent prayer, eyes fixate on worn images of saints nailed to door frames or carved into humble wooden altars. Processions snake through the streets, a colourful, sombre parade of robed figures carrying relics and candles, their footsteps stirring up dust and hope in equal measure. The air trembles with whispered hymns and the rhythmic beating of drums, a communal heartbeat against the encroaching darkness. It's a far cry from the flickering screens and endless distractions of modern life. Today, you might find solace in scrolling through endless feeds or watching short bursts of entertainment, a fleeting escape from stress. Here, people clutch their rosaries as if they were life jackets in a storm, each bead a small anchor against the vast, unknowable abyss of death and despair. But alongside this deep religiosity exists a web of superstition and folk belief, a patchwork of rituals and remedies born from desperation and hope. The concept of miasma, the idea that the plague spreads through poisonous, corrupt air, dominates every thought. To combat this invisible enemy, you carry your mask stuffed with fragrant herbs, lavender, rosemary, rue. These are your medieval essential oils, except with a slightly higher chance of accidental poisoning if you happen to nibble on the wrong leaf. Villagers hang sprigs of garlic and bunches of dried flowers from doorways, believing these charms will ward off evil spirits and disease. Songs are sung to chase away unseen demons, and blood from animals is sometimes mixed into potions with the hope it will burn out the sickness. The line between medicine and magic blurs, each as vital and uncertain as the other. It's a world where logic yields to tradition, and every precaution is a gamble. Fear binds the community tightly, a double-edged sword that both unites and divides. The dread of the plague is ever present, but so too is the fear of hunger as crops fail under uncertain skies. Punishment from God is whispered as the cause of all suffering, a divine wrath to be feared as much as the disease itself. Accusations fly like sparks of witches, heretics, or those who consort with dark forces, leading to violent lynchings in the town square, or desperate families fleeing into the wilderness. The communal anxiety is a living thing, coiling and shifting with every rumor, every death, every unexplained cough. You are at the heart of this storm, both a figure of hope and suspicion. Some see you as a guardian, a savior armed with knowledge and herbs. Others regard you with wary eyes, afraid that your presence means the disease is near, or worse, that you are an unlucky omen yourself. Children stop their games and watch you approach, their faces a mix of awe and fear. Women cross themselves quickly, whispering prayers under their breath as you pass. Men nod with guarded respect, but their eyes flicker with doubt. The weight of these reactions settles heavily on you, heavier even than the mask that hides your face. Some believe carrying a dead toad in your pocket wards off the plague, Others think that publicly whipping oneself in the streets will earn God's mercy and halt the pestilence. These practices, strange to modern ears, are sincere acts of desperation, rituals performed to wrest control from chaos. You might smile quietly to yourself at the notion of a toad as an unlikely talisman, but you understand the comfort these beliefs bring. Fear here is like the smoke from 100 chimneys. You breathe it in whether you want to or not, and it colors every thought and action. Still beneath the dread and superstition, there is a quiet resilience. The community clings to its faith, its rituals, and its hopes, balancing on the razor's edge between despair and survival. And you, moving through this fragile world, are both witness and participant in a dance as old as humanity itself. But even in a world heavy with fear, people still reached for one another, seeking connection in the cold, finding warmth in shared prayers and whispered comforts. And beyond the prayers and charms, there were bonds that kept life moving, fragile, human, and surprisingly familiar. In a world shadowed by sickness and uncertainty, human connection is the thread that holds the fraying fabric of life together. Families cluster in cramped, smoke-stained homes where generations share both space and survival. Forget Netflix family drama. Here, your cousin might literally sleep on the floor 2 feet away from you every single night, their breath rising in soft clouds in the cold air. Children play quietly in corners while grandmothers hum ancient lullabies, their voices cracked but steady, a soothing balm against the chaos outside. Yet, family is both refuge and chain. Obligations weigh heavy, arranged marriages, inherited duties, debts of honor passed like heirlooms. The bonds that comfort can also confine, and you see the weary resignation behind proud smiles. Outside these walls, friendships flicker like fragile candles in the wind. Neighbors share what little they have, a loaf of bread, a pinch of dried herbs, whispered advice on which remedies might ease a fever. You catch glimpses of kindness in furtive exchanges, hands brushing as one passes a basket of goods, eyes meeting in silent solidarity. But friendship is a delicate dance here, shadowed by suspicion. Who carries the plague? Who will betray a secret to save themselves? Trust is a scarce currency, precious and easily lost. And then there is love, a scarce, bright flame in the gloom. Romance is a stolen glance across a smoky tavern, a shy promise whispered beneath the flicker of candlelight. Tinder swipes? Here, it's a glance across a smoky tavern, and maybe the promise of a dance if the fiddle doesn't break. Young couples sneak away to hidden corners, their hands trembling as much from fear as desire. Marriages are often transactions of survival, but beneath the weight of duty, hearts still flutter and dreams persist. Social hierarchies carve the landscape of relationships with sharp edges. Peasants bow their heads to nobles whose velvet sleeves have never known hardship. Clerics offer prayers and judgment alike, their robes a barrier between the sacred and the profane. Your own place is precarious, respected by some for your knowledge and courage, feared by others who see you as a harbinger of death, never quite trusted. You move between classes, a figure both necessary and alien, bearing the dual burden of healer and reminder. Community rituals are the lifeblood of social bonds. You find yourself swept into processions where the scent of freshly baked bread mingles with the sharp tang of worn leather and the sweet smoke of burning herbs. The sound of bagpipes and fiddles fills the air, weaving through laughter, prayers, and the occasional sob. Weddings burst with color and chaos. Bright ribbons flutter on rough-spun gowns, and the feast spills onto wooden tables, groaning under the weight of coarse bread, salted meats, and sharp cheeses. Funerals bring a chill in their wake. hands cold and trembling as they clasp in farewell, voices low but unyielding in lament. Festivals burst with life, even as death lurks nearby, a testament to the stubbornness of hope. Yet beneath this warmth, tensions simmer. Land disputes flare into bitter arguments, gossip spreads like wildfire, branding neighbors as witches or heretics, with little evidence beyond a whispered rumor. Jealousies crackle in the shadows, rivalries deepen, and the fragile peace of the village can shatter over the smallest slight. Life here is never just about companionship. It is a complex web of alliances and betrayals, love and suspicion, laughter and fear. Your awkward office party? Try a medieval wedding feast where half the guests are drunk by noon and the other half are arguing over goats. At least your neighbors don't accuse you of witchcraft when your Wi-Fi cuts out. Some peculiar customs add color to this tapestry. In certain villages, sneezing during a wedding is believed to be a good omen, unless, of course, you ask a different grandmother who insists it's a curse. Public punishments double as grim entertainment, drawing crowds who jeer and gasp, a medieval version of reality TV where justice and cruelty intertwine. You watch these scenes with a mix of fascination and weary amusement, knowing that beneath the spectacle lies the raw human need for order and belonging. Through it all, you sense the unspoken truth. These connections, fraught and fragile, are what keep the world turning. Even as sickness claims loved ones and despair looms, the need to hold on to each other remains unbroken. And of course, nothing brought people together or drove them apart, quite like food and drink. If you really want to understand these bonds, you need to sit at their table. The surface is scarred and worn, its grain catching the flicker of a single tallow candle, casting long shadows that dance alongside the rising smoke from a nearby hearth. The air carries a mix of scents, a faint tang of sour broth simmering too long, the sharpness of salted meat hanging in the corner, and the subtle earthiness of crushed herbs tucked into a cracked ceramic bowl. It's not a feast, but it stirs your appetite all the same. There are no forks here, only personal knives with worn handles, their blades nicked from years of use. A single spoon carved from dark wood rests beside a chipped trenchers made of stale rye bread, its crust rough and unforgiving against your fingertips. Nearby, a tin cup bears the fingerprints of many hands, its once bright surface dulled by time and use. A faded cloth serves as a napkin, its edges frayed like the patience of those who share this meal. A basin of cool water sits ready for washing hands, the ritual before and after eating, a humble gesture of cleanliness amidst the omnipresent grime. The everyday fare is simple but sustaining. Thick pottage bubbles quietly, a stew of barley, root vegetables, and whatever greens could be gathered before the frost. The coarse rye bread, dense and heavy, offers more chew than flavor, its bitterness a reminder of the field's hardships. Hard cheese, aged and sharp, sits in a small wedge beside a few boiled eggs, their shells cracked and dusted with dirt. On fish days, smoked herring or pickled eel might grace the table, their saltiness cutting through the monotony. Ale, watered down and cloudy, is the drink of choice. Safer than the muddy village water, though it carries its own earthy tang. You sip, the bitterness lingering like a quiet protest against hunger. Contrast this with the halls of the wealthy, where roasted venison glistens under a sheen of honey and spices imported at great cost. Pies brim with dried fruits and nuts, their crusts flaky and golden. Saffron threads tint the rice with a saffron yellow, a color so rare it seems almost magical. Wine flows freely, its sharp sweetness a stark counterpoint to the austerity of village life. You can almost hear the clinking of fine goblets and the rustle of silk gowns worlds apart from the rough cloth and cracked pottery before you. Before the first bite, hands are washed solemnly, the cold water chased by whispered prayers for health and protection. The eldest claims the first portion, a silent acknowledgement of status that shapes each moment at the table. Portions are measured carefully. None dare waste what the earth grudgingly provides. Fasting days punctuate the calendar when meat is forbidden and fish becomes the humble substitute, a practice both spiritual and practical. You remember how difficult it is to honor these rules when hunger gnaws like a persistent shadow. Eating here is a far cry from modern convenience. No app promises a meal in 30 minutes, only the slow rhythm of preparation and the hope that the bread hasn't turned too stale. Gluten-free loaves would be a marvel. Here, the bite of rye is as rough as an old ledger, and every crumb counts. The market stalls outside are alive with clamour. Vendors shout prices over the rattle of barrels and the scraping of carts. The smell of malt mingles with the sharp vinegar of pickled vegetables. The baker's oven roars as loaves bake to a crusty perfection. You weave through the crowds, collecting herbs to soothe fevered brows and a flask of theriac, that elusive antidote whispered about but rarely seen. The table is a stage where hunger and status play their parts. Hunger sharpens senses, heightening every flavor and texture, while the wealthy display abundance in carved meats and gilded dishes. Waste is a luxury few can afford. Scraps are saved, reheated, and transformed. You watch a child nibble the edge of a crust, savoring what others might discard. The hunger here is not just of the body but of the soul, always present, always urgent, a quiet companion to daily struggles. After the last crumb is claimed, the village exhales, the hearth's glow softens as night deepens. From the open window, faint strains of a fiddle drift through the cold air, mingling with distant laughter and the shuffle of restless feet. Filled or famished, hearts seek the warmth of music, the brief rebellion of dance, and the comforting illusion of forgetting the day's relentless hardships. With the last crumb, the village returns to breath, and the night calls for music and footsteps. Lanterns sway gently, their flickering flames casting jittery light across the uneven cobblestones, where laughter bubbles up in tentative bursts, held in check by the ever-present weight of fear. You follow the murmur of voices, the clatter of wooden mugs, the shuffle of tired boots pressed into the dirt. Inside the tavern, the benches groan under the weight of village folk seeking refuge, soldiers, peasants, and the occasional merchant, clustered around tables, scarred by decades of spilled drinks and whispered secrets. The sturdy counter is darkened by smoke and time, a sentinel behind which the barkeep moves with practiced ease, filling battered pewter mugs with frothy, watered-down ale. Dust motes dance in the thin shafts of light slicing through grimy windows, catching the blue-grey haze of the hearth smoke. Dice clatter across rough-hewn boards, their unpredictable roll as unreliable as a letter lost in the mail or a cart with a bent wheel. Nearby, a worn tabulero for 9 men's Morris bears witness to patient strategies and swift defeats, while voices rise and fall in jest and grumble, weaving stories that drift like the ale's bitter aftertaste. A voice lifts in a cantiga, its tune ragged but warm, the notes stumbled over like a child's first steps, but no less heartfelt. Outside, the pulse of music beckons you toward a circle of dancers, feet stirring dust and straw. The sweet sweat of exertion mingles with the sharp scent of crushed rosemary and sage pressed beneath boots. A lute strums soft chords, a fiddle whines a plaintive melody, flutes call with breathy whispers, and drums mark the rhythm with steady hands, each beat a heartbeat shared among strangers and kin. You watch the simple dance unfold, boots tapping, hands clasping, bodies spinning in a fragile defiance of shadow and sorrow. Nearby, a modest stage hosts a troupe performing a mystery play, their wooden planks shaky but their purpose clear. Coarse fabrics drape rough costumes, and faces painted with charcoal and ochre tell tales of saints and sinners. Laughter and silence mingle, sometimes a ripple of amusement, sometimes a hush of reverence, as the morality drama unfolds, reminding all of the thin line between salvation and damnation. The calendar's cycle governs these gatherings, the fiery bonfires of St. John's Eve, the solemn candlelit processions threading through streets heavy with the scent of burning wax and crushed herbs. The flicker of votive flames mirrors the stars, fragile lights against the encroaching night. Yet even amid celebration, the shadow lingers. Flagellants march in austere lines, their chants a somber counterpoint to the revelry. Their bare backs and whispered curses remind you that joy is never far from pain. Sermons spill from church doors, cutting through the tavern's din like a sharp blade, urging penitence and warning against sin. Curious onlookers gather near the market square, watching grim spectacles meant to enforce order. Acts of punishment or piety performed with a quiet gravity that chills the air. Through it all, your presence is both a balm and a burden. Eyes flicker toward you with a mixture of respect and unease. A hand brushes your sleeve. An urgent question about a neighbor's fever, a whispered plea for protection. You touch the edge of the tavern's eaves, tracing a ritual gesture to ward off ill omens, a small act against the invisible tide of dread. Amid the raucous laughter and clinking mugs, the distant toll of a bell reminds you of the fragility beneath the surface. The dance, the song, the play, they are acts of resistance, little rebellions against the dark. The warmth of bodies pressed close, the rough texture of wool on your shoulder, the taste of honeyed bread and sour ale, they anchor you in this moment, fleeting yet precious. When the last note fades, the bell answers, a sober reminder that every feast must bow before the silence. Between laughter and shadow, the village holds its oldest truth, to be born, to hope, and to depart. The midwife's hands, steady yet gentle, cradle the baby, wrapping the small body in a coarse linen cloth rough against tender skin. Nearby, a basin of warm water waits and whispered prayers thread through the air, a plea for protection, for breath to steady, for life to take hold. The rush to baptize is urgent, born from the shadows of rampant death, a hope sealed with holy water, the first breath, a tiny promise in a time so often marked by loss. Joy is measured, cautious, a flicker of light against the ever-present night. As the child grows, so too do the bonds that weave through this village. A simple ring exchanged between the hands of two young souls, a dowry laid at the threshold, and the blessing of the village priest murmured under the weathered arch of the church door. Hands bound by cloth ribbons, bread and salt shared to symbolize sustenance and preservation, a brief melody sung by neighbors whose faces bear the lines of survival. The community gathers not merely to witness, but to anchor one another in the fragile certainty of union amidst uncertainty. Generations overlap in the passing of craft and counsel. The carpenter's worn bench, carved with names and years, holds the weight of stories and skill passed from weathered hands to eager apprentices. An elder's voice offers advice, seasoned with experience and tinged with sorrow, as tools are gripped and lessons learned beneath the steady rhythm of village life. Each stroke and nail hammered is an imprint of continuity, a testament to the enduring cycle of growth and care. But the shadow lingers, creeping closer with each cough and fevered brow. The sickbed is stark and simple, a pallet of straw, a rough blanket, the faint flicker of a candle casting long, trembling shadows. The priest's murmured unction mingles with soft prayers, a sacred balm against the silent enemy. You stand between hope and despair, offering care measured by knowledge and tempered by humility. When death comes swift, the rituals are hurried, the rites incomplete, yet dignity is preserved in the quiet reverence of those left behind. The funeral procession moves slowly through narrow streets, the heavy toll of the bell marking the passage from this world to the next. Candles drip molten wax onto worn stone, and the earth, cold and unyielding, receives its burden with a final, whispered farewell. In these times of plague, graves are often shared, discreetly dug beyond the village bounds, a somber reminder of the fragile thread between life and death. Yet names endure in prayers, in the worn bench at the hearth, in the whispered stories that bind the living to the departed. Around you, the walls are adorned with faded frescoes of the danse macabre, skeletal figures entwined in eternal dance with the living, symbols of humility and the inescapable embrace of mortality. The air hums softly with the ancient wisdom of Ecclesiastes, unspoken but felt. A time to be born, a time to love, a time to depart. Life here is a repeated miracle, stitched together by daily acts of survival and grace. Every loaf of bread broken, every cup raised in quiet toast, every laugh shared in a shadowed alley speaks of resilience. You close the window against the chill night, listening to the village breathe, its fears, its joys, its endless turning. Back in your chamber, the candle guttering low casts a gentle glow on the rough-hewn walls. The linen sheet lies folded halfway down, the scent of beeswax and dried herbs mingling with the faint trace of soap and milk. Your breath slows, settling into the rhythm of the night. You give thanks for the journey, for the fragile lives you have touched, for the moments between sorrow and hope. Now, as the world outside fades into silence, it is your turn to rest. The candle dims, but the warmth remains. Close your eyes, the village endures, and so do you.